Unusual goings-on at number 31 Pine Bottom Drive created a lot of suspicion in the mind of Wren, as she was a very bright and inquisitive little girl. She had long held the view that something wasn't quite as it seemed with her brother and the strange occurrences that seemed to follow him around. After their recent bath time escapades, Wren decided the only way for her to form some idea of what was going on was to gather as much evidence as she possibly could. She therefore had to become a super-sleuthing house detective. Only then might she form a watertight case she could take to Judge Dad for his judgment. Wren had to do things properly though, and the only solution was to form the Wren Detective Agency. The most important thing she needed to start her agency and her case was the right hat. After all the detectives she had seen on TV wore an impressive hat. After rummaging through Dad's wardrobe, she found the perfect piece, an adequately impressive hat. She was then ready. Wren quickly set about her mission by following Hadley around as much as she could for the next week, taking notes in her princess scrapbook of anything that piqued her suspicion. At the end of the week, she reviewed her evidence and she was a little disappointed by what she had. There was nothing conclusive, nothing which showed what was going on in their house, and certainly nothing she could show to Dad. On Monday, she had noted that when Hadley and her had done some painting at home, after school, she could swear that some paint had been flicked into her hair, but when Dad came to her rescue, there was nothing to be seen. On Wednesday, Hadley's usual bowl of fruit after dinner had been tipped over and she was sure that a terrible, squelchy mess had been created on the carpet, but again, there was no lasting evidence. On Thursday, at bedtime story time, she was convinced that something was nibbling her toes, causing her to shriek out in surprise, but Hadley had been on the other side of the bed at the time and they had no pets. On Friday, she had noted a trail of her favorite fruity snacks, leading to her brother's closed bedroom door, but Hadley was nowhere to be found in his bedroom, and when she looked downstairs, she found him playing on the computer with Dad. When she returned to the scene of the crime, to gather evidence, she found that the trail of fruity snacks had vanished. This was the clearest evidence in her mind that something unworldly was happening in their house and that she had to become even smarter in her efforts to gather proof. When it came round to the weekend, she decided she was going to lay a trap. One which would prove once and for all the existence of some kind of mystery at least, or hopefully, who the culprit was. So, when it came to snack time, she didn't eat her portion of fruity snacks, but hid them in her pocket. On Saturday evening, when Dad was doing some baking, she carefully collected a little bit of flour, which she put inside one of her dolly's drinking bottles. So that by Sunday afternoon, she had that she needed to spring a trap. Whilst Hadley and Dad were reading, she slipped away and went upstairs to the landing and made a little pile of fruity snacks. She then surrounded the pile with a thin dusting of the flour she had collected the day before. The trap was ready, all she now had to do was to hide somewhere, so as to see what would befall the little pile of snacks. After what felt like many hours of staring at that little pile of snacks, Wren started to become bored and her mind started to wander. It was then that Hadley and Dad finished their reading and her attention was drawn by a call from Dad asking, "Does anyone want to go to the park?" In that moment, as she was considering this important question and shouted back to Dad, "I do," her attention was drawn back to the trap she had laid. Only for, shock of all shocks, the pile of snacks had vanished. How had Hadley had time to run upstairs and devour the snacks? How had she not heard anything? Why did she have to lose her attention for that precise moment? More than a little disappointed, Wren came out from her hiding place, behind a large houseplant, and searched for her brother. She looked everywhere downstairs, but eventually found him in his bedroom, just off the landing where she had set her trap. How had he crept past her so quickly? Although something strange had happened, this wasn't the evidence she needed. Being very disappointed by the fruits of all her effort, she resigned herself to cleaning up the mess of flour, only for her to find that she had in fact found something. As clear as day, in the thin layer of flour, she saw a small footprint. The truly shocking thing, though, was that it was not the footprint of an 8-year-old boy, but that of a rather small animal. This was it. This was the evidence she needed and the evidence she had been trying to gather all week, so she ran to her bedroom to get her scrapbook so that she could take a copy of the footprint, but when she returned, she was surprised to see Hadley standing on the landing and the flour wiped clean from the floor. As Hadley stared at her, he gave her a little smile and winked.